We could do anything. But what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be?
Welcome to A-Train Bets. I'm the A-Train, and I make bets. And today we're going to talk about a concept that's key to the bets that we're making as positive EV gamblers, and that is this little thing over here that you'll see on your positive expected value screen and in other places in OddsJam and with the money machine calculator that we use. It's called No-Vig odds. And so we want to understand, what are No-Vig odds and why are they important? Okay, so if we look at this, we can see on the explanation, and I hate when people do the Merriam-Webster's dictionary does blah blah blah, but you know what, we're going to do it anyway. So the OddsJam No-Vig odds dictionary says sports bettors use No-Vig odds to determine what the sports books think the true probability of an outcome is. Sports books add vig to their odds to ensure profits for them. You can find out more about No-Vig odds. Why don't we do that? And let's click on it. There's a link and an article, which I'll link in the show notes, to No-Vig odds and what it all is. And so that's all fine. But in human terms, what it means is, what would the odds be if it was a fair, totally fair bet that nobody was making added profit on either side? That's what you really want to understand No-Vig odds to be, is this is the true fair market price that, based on everything we know about this particular bet, the odds should be this. That's what we are going for No-Vig odds. Now, it gets more complicated, but at its core, that's what's going on. So what you can see here, and what you'll see on the OddsJam screens and pages and what have you, is that you'll see an OddsJam algorithm line. That's also what the No-Vig odds are. So this is, even though you don't see a label here for the OddsJam algorithm, that's effectively what this is. They've looked at all the odds in the market, and they have gone through and they figured out, okay, what should the average odds be? And so, or what are the average odds? Because they can assess that. And what they're doing is they're going to look at the some books are sharper than others historically, and so they're going to overweight some of those based on historical trends. They're going to look at all of the books and add some mean and stuff. So it's not just a straight average, but it incorporates multiple books, right? And so that's how they go in and determine No-Vig odds. Now, the process of creating No-Vig odds is called de-vigging. So you're looking at the odds, you're looking at average odds, and you're getting in de-vigging them, which means you are removing the implied house advantage from them. Now, there are some calculators and tools where you can start to look at No-Vig fair odds. You can do that and what have you. And that is something that I do in my money machine spreadsheet. And there's a couple things to know about this. So what you'll see here in our money machine spreadsheet, that is really just based on all of the calculators that exist in OddsJam and in sports betting. I just do it in a spreadsheet so that I can access it faster when I'm working and making bets, and when I'm doing the live streams, it helps bring all that information in one place without having to bounce between calculators. That's all we're doing with this. So certainly something you can go and develop yourself if you would like to. So what you can do is see on this No-Vig line. So in this case, let's just run the numbers for this one, right? So we're going to look at 106 and minus 106. And so what this is saying is, here is where we can make a play at a book, right? And then in terms of reference odds, we're going to start with a Pinnacle, which tends to be a good place to start because they are largely considered the sharpest sports book in the world. And in this case, they have a pretty good degree of confidence based on width. Again, there's a video for width. You can understand what that all is about separately. But, you know, this is a pretty good starting point for the market. And as you can see, the No-Vig calculation that I have is quite close to the No-Vig calculation that OddsJam has. Great. So in our money machine here, we have a No-Vig calculation that is basically said, okay, well, we've looked at a sharp book and we've looked at the, opportunities in the market. And in this case, there is a play that you could go make at minus 106 over at a book called Cut and make a play if you wanted to. And that's what this money machine is designed to do. But what we're caring about here is this No-Vig calculation is saying this is what we actually are using to determine whether or not this minus 106 is a positive EV play or not. And so all it's actually doing is it's looking at this book amount, comparing it to the No-Vig line. Minus 106 is cheaper than minus 111. That means we have a positive EV play to make. That's it. And so how do we get to this No-Vig? Well, that's where it's actually kind of interesting, is that there's multiple different ways to what is called de-Vig odds. So it's not just a pure exact science. There's multiple different ways you could do it, because the nature of the numbers is such that at higher degrees of underdogs and favorites, the math gets a little bit wonky. And so it's a little bit of an estimate, but it's a consistent estimate that's based on some underlying methodologies. So just be aware that there's multiple ways to de-vig odds. Understanding all the nuance and detail on it is probably much more grain, much more detailed than what you actually need. What's really important is to understand no-vig odds are basically taking what the odds, in this case, let's look at the reference odds here. And this is why I wanted to use this on this calculator as opposed to the OddsJam calculators, is that if you look at the likelihood of winning, so in these rows below, you see a percent vig, right? So the percent vig for the reference book. So this is just looking at Pinnacle. Ignore the book side because this is two different books, so it's not really a 0% vig. But on the reference book, it's 106 and minus 119, right? And so that implies a 2.88% probability. If I wanted to go and look and see, okay, what is Fliff, for example, they're over here on the left. Fliff is at a minus 120 and minus 120. Minus 120 and minus 120, they have an implied VIG of 9% compared to Pinnacle's 2.8%. One of the reasons that Pinnacle is largely regarded as one of the sharpest books, if not the sharpest book out there, is that they charge less VIG. So that means they have to be better at setting prices, because otherwise, if you're bad at setting prices, you're going to need to charge more because sometimes you're just going to be wrong. And that's where people like us can take advantage of it in positive EV betting. Great, right? So if you understand on the Pinnacle side, okay, with the odds, you can see 48.54% and 54.34%. And your math brain might be like, wait a second, that adds up to more than 100%. And it does. And it adds up to exactly, 102.88. Now you can see 2.88 is the percent of VIG that's been added to it. And so that's the thing that we have to understand, is that when we are making a play at a book, we're getting a better deal than what the price implies normally. So because it's a lesser percent that we're actually paying for versus the actual likelihood of that happening when we're betting a favorite, or versus when we're betting an underdog, we're paying less and going to get more in return than what the true odds of that happening are. That all comes back to being able to look at the no-vig odds. So that's where you start to bake in all of those probabilities. And then when you're looking at just odds, all you have to do is know that the no-vig odds were based on the actual probabilities of things happening, based on what the market was telling us. And all I have to do to see if a particular bet is a positive EV bet or not is to look at the difference between what is the bet that I can actually go make versus what are the no-vig odds. Because if I see, hey, the odds that I have in hand, the odds that I can place at this book are better than the no-vig odds, it's a positive EV play every time. Now, it may not be enough of a positive EV play or with enough confidence from width to actually make the play, but you can say we are assessing this as a positive EV play for sure. And then whether or not you bet it is a secondary set of considerations. So no-vig odds, just know, all the complexities aside, no-vig odds are the true fair odds that you would have if there were no sports books involved. If you were betting with a friend and you wanted to say, this is a totally fair bet based on what the market is saying, that is what no-vig odds are. If you remember that, then you can use all of these other techniques, knowing that if we get to no-vig odds, we know if our prices are better than no-vig odds, we have a positive EV play. And that's what the positive EV screen and OddsJam is predicated on. It's what we do with the money machine, with manual calculations, with the calculators on OddsJam, with really any positive EV betting strategy. It's all about first calculating no-vig odds, the art of figuring out what is that market actually true at, what are those no-vig odds, and how well can we calibrate that. That's the art. That's the challenge. The easy part is saying, are these odds better than the no-vig odds or not, right? And so that's where the positive EV screen makes that super easy for you. But anytime you have a list of odds, you could effectively go through this process and do exactly the same thing that OddsJam just does for you, makes very easy. To me, OddsJam's tools are fantastic. They're great. They make things super simple, but they also can lull you into a sense of complacency, because if you don't really understand what's happening underneath, then you may miss out on opportunities or otherwise not really understand what you're putting your money into. And that's something that I think everybody should push towards, is understanding, okay, what am I really investing in here? What am I really betting on? And do I understand why? Do I really understand why this is a positive EV bet versus why is it not? So that, I think, is really important to understand. The thing with OddsJam that you're not going to get anywhere else is the data. You're never going to find another place that's better at providing multiple versions and views of that truth. All of the different books, nobody comes close. And to me, as good as OddsJam's tools are, I can do that with a spreadsheet. It's the data that I would never be able to get any other way. And that's why I'm such an advocate for OddsJam, is that nobody can go out as an individual and get all of this data at their fingertips the way OddsJam makes it available to you. So for me, that's why OddsJam. The calculations, though, I think are something that anybody who wants to think of themselves as a sharp sports bettor, you need to understand that calculation and understand it at least at enough of a level that it will make sense why you're betting certain things. And that will help you evolve your process and fine tune your strategies as the world around us continues to evolve. Sportsbook, this is early days for broad-based access to sports books throughout the US and even globally. There's a lot of opportunities today. Those opportunities are going to keep evolving, and we need to keep evolving and learning as that happens. So with that, hopefully you found this particular video, though I know we got a little bit bogged down in some of the minutia, but even if you didn't quite pick up on all of that, that's okay. Hopefully now you have a better sense of what no-vig odds really mean and how they are so important to the positive EV betting strategies that we use. So if you find this content useful, please like and subscribe. Please check out my live streams. I do them every day, Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. Central Time, along with weekends when I can as well. And there's a bunch of content available. If you go to atrainbets.com, you can find links to all of it. And if you're signing up for OddsJam, please use my link at atrainbetsoddsjam.com and promo code atrainbets to save 20% off for life. And I will give you the Money Machine spreadsheet for free when you do that. So reach out and we will make that happen. Just need to send a screenshot. It's pretty easy. So with that, everybody, best bets of luck from your friends over at A-Train-Bets and your friends over at A-Train-Bets. Or just me. It's just me. All right. So with that, take care, everyone. Have a good one and good luck betting.